Hi everyone and welcome to Watching Watches. I'm still building this channel, so please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. Today I'll be talking about water resistance, so before I get into it, I'll just show you a few watches with different water resistance levels. So the first one here is a very budget Casio dress watch. Just says water resist on the front, and it actually doesn't have a rating on the back. So this watch is of a very low water resistance. The next one is a Timex Expedition, and it says there WR 50 meters, so it's 50 meters water resistance. Moving up again is my Helm HFT20, and on the back it says 10 ATM, and I'll explain what that means a little later. Now two more watches. My Citizen NY0040, and that says there divers water resist 200 meters, and that one's a dive watch. And the other dive watch is the Seiko SKX, which says divers 200 meters. So all the photos I'm about to show are from members of a couple of different watch Facebook groups. They've given me permission to use their photos, so if you're watching, guys, thanks for your contribution. I hope it makes for an interesting video. Let's start with some terminology. If you see a watch marked as waterproof rather than water resistant, I'd think twice. No watches are completely waterproof, as at some depth the pressure will build up to a level that causes water to seep into your watch. Water resistance can be indicated in pressure, that's bars or atmospheres, like we saw in the Helm watch at 10 ATM, which is 10 atmospheres, or the depth in meters or feet. 1 atmosphere is the same as 10 meters, so that Helm was rated at 10 atmospheres. It means it's 100 meters water resistant. Now, if we consider the meter rating, which is most commonly used, it usually doesn't mean that the watch can be submerged to that level of depth. That would only be true if the watch was perfectly still in perfectly still water. However, as soon as the watch or water is moving, it increases the pressure on the watch dramatically. It's the pressure the watch can withstand, not the depth you can take the watch to. That's why it's best not to rely on the water resistance rating on the dial, unless it's a certified dive watch, which undergoes special tests to ensure it can reach the stated depths. I'll get into that a little later. And obviously, don't get it wet if it has a leather strap, and if it has a screw down crown, make sure the crown is screwed in before you go swimming. So let's talk about ISO standards. ISO stands for the International Organization of Standardization. They've been around for over 70 years, and they publish a range of standards for hospitals, manufacturing, laboratories, and of course, watches. The manufacturers don't need to comply with these standards. It's all voluntary, but I'm using their information as a guide as it's accepted as industry best practice. You'll need to use your common sense a little. If you order a $25 watch from eBay that doesn't have a screw down crown and is rated to 300 meters, make sure you order 2, so you have a spare when the first one gets water inside it. But on the flip side, I wore a 30 meter rated Casio as a kid when I went snorkeling, swimming laps, bodyboarding, and I never had a problem with it. It's always going to be a bit of a gamble with the lower end watches, so it depends on the level of risk that you are comfortable with. There are 2 ISO standards that I'd like to talk about today. The first standard, ISO 2281, has standards for different depth ratings. So the 30 meter water resistance doesn't mean that the watch can be submerged to 30 meters. It means it's splash proof, and that's about all. 50 meter depth rating can be worn in the shower and gentle swimming in the pool. But if you're a regular swimmer, or you participate in water sports or take your watch to the beach, you'll be much safer with a watch rated to 100 meters. And then a watch with a 100 meter water resistance rating is suitable for almost everything except for diving. So things like water sports, surfing, and regular swimming. The second standard I'd like to talk about, ISO 6425, is for dive watches. Unlike ISO6425, which allows one watch to represent an entire manufacturing batch, the 6425 standard requires every watch to be individually tested and to pass all of the requirements of the standard. If the watch has a 6425 certification, it means it's a legitimate dive watch. It'll say ISO rated on the watch or the word divers with the depth rating after that, like I showed you on the SKX and the Citizen NY0040. Some of the tests that watches undergo to pass this dive watch standard include the underwater test, where watches are held at 30 centimeters underwater for 2 full days, and all mechanisms must work at the conclusion of the test. The condensation test, the watch is placed on a hot plate at 45 degrees Celsius for 10 to 20 minutes. Water is then placed on the surface of the watch, and if any condensation forms on the underside of the crystal, the watch fails the test. The watch must have a time pre-selecting device, which really just means a dive bezel. There's another test called the water tightness test, where the watch is placed inside a sealed vessel containing water on a bench inside a laboratory. A higher pressure is applied, 25% above the rated pressure. So for example, if a watch is rated to 200 meters, that's 20 bar. The watch will be subjected to 25 bars of pressure inside this vessel. It will be held there for 2 hours, and basically, if water gets inside the case, again, the watch fails the test. Some of the more interesting tests include a magnetic resistance test. This is tested by 3 expositions to a direct current magnetic field of 4,800 amperes per meter. The watch must keep its accuracy to plus or minus 30 seconds a day, as measured before the test, despite the magnetic field. There's a shock resistance test, where they whack it with a 3-kilo hammer, traveling at around 20 kilometers per hour. A corrosion test, where they soak it in salt water for 24 hours. And if it's a quartz watch, for example, just a regular battery-powered watch or a Citizen EcoDrive solar-powered watch, it needs to have a low battery indicator. Usually, the second hand skips every second beat if the battery is low. This is so the battery doesn't go flat on you when you're underwater. The lume needs to be bright enough to see 25 centimeters away in the dark. The list goes on. In conclusion, if you want to swim with your watch on, make sure it's 50 meters water resistant at least, but better to have 100 meters just to be safe. Now, I don't dive, but if I did, I would definitely choose an ISO certified dive watch. You'll need to know it'll perform if your dive computer fails, and that ISO certification just gives that extra reassurance. Although I wouldn't like that hammer test tried too many times on my SKX. My next video will be on my top affordable ISO certified dive watches. So please make sure you check it out. If you have any questions about the ISO standard or this video, feel free to comment. It'd be great if you liked and subscribed, and have a great day.